Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to close your eyes for a moment. Just close them. I want you to think about the last time someone asked you a question in a room full of people. A room where every pair of eyes turned toward you. Where the air suddenly felt thicker. Where your heart started beating just a little bit faster. Where the words that were so perfectly formed inside your head just disappeared. And you opened your mouth, and nothing came out. Or worse, something came out, but it wasn't what you meant. It was broken, it was stuttered, it was apologetic, it was small. And you sat back down feeling like you had just failed yourself in front of the entire world. You can open your eyes now. I see you. I know that feeling. I know it in my bones. I know it in my stomach. I know it in in the morning moments when you replay that conversation over and over again. Thinking of everything you should have said, could have said, would have said. If only your mouth had listened to your heart. And I'm standing here today to tell you something that I wish someone had told me a long, long time ago. Your voice, that voice of yours, is not broken. It is not weak. It is not too soft, too loud, too thick with an accent, too uncertain, too anything. Your voice is a weapon. And today, we are going to learn how to use it. My name is Priyanka Chopra. And the irony of me standing here talking about confidence is something that still makes me smile. Because there was a time in my life when I could barely look someone in the eye, let alone address a stadium full of people. So let me take you back. Let me take you all the way back to a 13-year-old girl sitting in a classroom in Bareilly, India. A small town, a town where dreams were allowed, but only the respectable kind. The kind that fit inside a neat little box. Doctor, engineer, good wife, good life. This little girl had big eyes and a bigger imagination. She used to sit by the window during math class. Not because she was bad at math, but because the window showed her the sky. And the sky had no box. The sky just went. It kept going and going and going, all the way to places she hadn't named yet. She used to talk. Oh, she used to talk. At home, she was electric. She made her parents laugh. She told stories. She imitated teachers and neighbors and movie characters. Words came easily to her, pouring out like water, fast and clear and warm. But the moment she stepped outside that front door, something happened. Something changed. She became quiet. Not because she had nothing to say, but because the world outside that door had a way of looking at her. Of looking at all of us, that said without using any words at all, who do you think you are? And she didn't have an answer. Do you know that feeling? That who do you think you are? Feeling. It doesn't announce itself loudly. It doesn't show up with a sign. It whispers. It slips in through the cracks of a careless comment from a classmate, a raised eyebrow from a teacher, a silence from someone you love when you share your dream out loud. It accumulates. Day after day after day. It builds inside you like sediment on the riverbed. Until one day you wake up and realize the river has stopped flowing. That was me at 13. That was me at 15. That was me at 17. When I was sent to America, alone. Not speaking the way Americans spoke. Not walking the way they walked. Not looking the way the magazines said a girl should look. I remember sitting in the cafeteria of my school in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, holding a lunch tray, scanning a room full of faces that all seemed to belong to each other, and feeling so profoundly, so achingly alone that I thought the loneliness might actually be visible. Like people could see it sitting on my shoulders. I opened my mouth once in that cafeteria. I said something. I don't even remember what. Something small, something just meant to connect. To say, I am here. I exist, please see me. And a girl looked at me, and she laughed. Not with me, at me. At my accent, at the way my words sounded, at the shape of my English. And I closed my mouth, and I didn't open it again. Not really, not fully, for a very long time. You see, what nobody tells you about silence is that it feels like safety. When you don't speak, you can't be wrong. You can't be laughed at. You can't be judged. The words stay perfect inside you, exactly the way you meant them. Nobody can touch them. Nobody can mock them. Silence feels like armor. But it's not armor. It's a cage. And the tragedy is that you build it yourself, bar by bar, with every word you swallow, with every opinion you keep behind your teeth, with every dream you whisper only to yourself at night, with every time you sit in a meeting and think I have something to say and then decide, no, it's not worth it. They won't understand. They'll judge me. It's safer to be quiet. I spent years in that cage. And here is what the cage cost me. It cost me friendships I never formed because I never let people know who I really was. It cost me opportunities I never took because I was afraid to ask for them. It cost me years of walking smaller than I actually was, speaking softer than I actually felt, pretending to be less than I actually am. And I want to look you in the eye right now and ask you, what has your silence cost you? What have you not said? What have you not asked for? What conversation have you avoided? What truth have you buried? What dream have you kept so deep inside yourself that it's almost stopped breathing? Because here is the truth that I had to learn the hard way. And I am going to give it to you today for free. The world does not reward the loudest person in the room. It does not reward the most polished. It does not reward the person with the perfectly curated vocabulary or the accent without edges. The world, the real world, rewards the person who speaks with intention, who speaks with presence, who opens their mouth and lets something real come out. Something human, something that says, I believe what I am saying. I believe in myself enough to say it out loud. That is confidence, not the absence of fear, not the perfect sentence, not the flawless performance. Confidence is deciding that what you have to say matters enough to say it, even when your hands are shaking. Now let me tell you about the moment my life changed. I was 19 years old. I had come back to India after America, and somehow, through a chain of events I still don't fully understand, I found myself being entered into the Femina Miss India competition. I want to be honest with you. I did not feel like a beauty queen. I did not walk into that competition feeling like a winner. I walked in feeling like someone who had spent the last several years being told, in 100 different silent ways, that she didn't quite belong anywhere. Too Indian for America, too American for India, too dark, too loud, too quiet, too much, not enough. But I walked in, and there was a moment, I remember it exactly, where we were being prepared for the stage interview. The part where they ask you questions, in front of judges, in front of cameras, in front of the whole country eventually. And I sat in that room watching the other girls, beautiful girls, practiced girls, girls who seem to have been born knowing exactly how to sit, how to smile, how to answer. And something small inside me started to say, you don't belong here. Go home, be quiet, be safe. And then I thought about that cage. I thought about the years I had spent safe and small and silent. I thought about the sky outside the classroom window in Bareilly, that sky that just kept going. And I made a decision, not a dramatic, movie moment decision, a quiet decision, the kind that you make in the middle of your chest, where nobody can see it. I decided that whatever happened on that stage, I was going to open my mouth and let the real thing come out. Not the rehearsed thing, not the safe thing, the real thing. And when they asked me a question, I answered it like I was talking to a human being, not performing for a judge. I answered it like I meant it, like my words had weight, like I had earned the right to take up space in that room. I won Miss India. I want to tell you something. Winning that title did not cure my insecurity. Life doesn't work like that. Trophies don't fix the voice in your head. What it gave me was something more important. It gave me evidence. Evidence that when I use my voice, my real voice, my unguarded voice, something happened. Something connected. Something worked. And I started to understand that what I had always thought was my weakness, this accent, this intensity, this way I have of speaking that is neither fully Indian nor fully American, but something entirely its own, was not my weakness. It was my signature. Let me say that again because I need you to hear it. The thing about your voice that you think makes it wrong, the accent, the pace, the pitch, the way you sometimes stumble on words when you're nervous, that thing is not your flaw. That is your signature. That is the fingerprint of who you are. And the world does not need another voice that sounds like every other voice. The world is drowning in polished, produced, perfectly rehearsed voices. What the world is starving for is a real one. Your real one. Now I want to talk about Hollywood. Because you deserve the full story, not the highlight reel. When I decided to pursue an acting career in America, people thought I had lost my mind. And I mean that literally. People who loved me, people who cared about me, sat me down and said, Priyanka, this is not realistic. You are a Bollywood actress. You are successful here. Why would you throw that away to go chase something that will never happen? Hollywood does not cast people like you. They don't know what to do with people like you. You will fail. You will come back embarrassed. Stay here. Stay safe. There it was again. Stay safe. And I want to be honest with you. A part of me heard that and was afraid. Because what if they were right? What if I went there and proved every single one of those voices correct? What if I opened my mouth in every audition room in Hollywood and they all looked at me the way that girl in the Iowa cafeteria looked at me? With that particular brand of casual cruelty. And I ended up back here, smaller and quieter and more broken than before. That fear was real. I'm not going to stand here and pretend I was fearless. I was terrified. But I have learned something about fear, and I want to share it with you right now. Fear is not the enemy of confidence. Fear is the proof that something matters to you. You are not afraid of the things that don't matter. You only fear the things that mean something, the things that are worth something, the things that require you to show up as your whole self. So when you feel fear, when your heart beats faster before you walk into that room, when your palms get wet before you make that phone call, when your throat tightens before you say the thing you've been needing to say, don't interpret that as a sign to retreat. Interpret it as a sign that you're alive, that this matters, that you are standing on the edge of something that could change your life. The only difference between the person who grows and the person who stays stuck is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward in spite of it. So I went to Hollywood. I walked into audition rooms where people looked at me, and I could see them trying to place me, trying to categorize me, reaching for a box that I would fit into, and coming up empty. I heard no more times than I can count. I had someone tell me once in a meeting that I should consider going back to India because the American audience wasn't ready for me yet. Can you imagine? Someone telling you that an entire nation of people wasn't ready for you yet. I could have believed it. I could have taken that as my cue to be smaller, to modify, to reshape myself into something more digestible, to sand down my edges, flatten my accent, dim the particular brightness that I'd been told my whole life was too much. But I had made a decision by then. A deeper decision than the one I made at Miss India. A decision at the level of my identity. I had decided that I was not going to edit myself for someone else's comfort. And that decision, that one decision, is the foundation of every ounce of confidence I have ever spoken with, on every stage, in every interview, in every audition room, in every boardroom, in every moment where I had to open my mouth and make it matter. You cannot speak with confidence from an edited self. You cannot speak with power from a diminished identity. The voice that shakes is always the voice that is trying to be something it isn't. The voice that lands, the voice that resonates, the voice that makes people lean forward in their seats. That voice always comes from a person who has made peace with who they are. Not perfection, peace. There's an enormous difference. Perfection says I will be confident when I have fixed everything wrong with me. When my accent is gone, when I have memorized enough vocabulary, when I am thinner, smarter, more polished, more practiced, more. When I am finally completely ready, peace says, I am not finished yet. I am still becoming. But I am enough right now, in this moment, to open my mouth and let something real come out. I want you to choose peace. Let me talk about training, because the title of this speech is not just Be Confident. That would be too simple and frankly a little insulting to your intelligence. Confidence without craft is just noise. Confidence with craft is power. I've been speaking publicly for many years now, and what I have learned is that a trained mouth is a different instrument than an untrained one. Not because training makes you sound like someone else, but because training teaches you to sound more like yourself. Think about a musician, a singer. When a singer trains their voice, they don't lose what makes their voice unique. They amplify it. They learn how to support it, project it, protect it. They learn how to bring out the notes that were always there but buried under tension and habit and fear. They learn how to breathe, how to hold space, how to let the song land. Speaking in public is the same. The first thing you have to train is your breath. I know that sounds basic, but I am telling you, most people who struggle to speak confidently in front of others are not struggling with vocabulary. They are struggling with oxygen. When we are nervous, we breathe shallow. Short little sips of air that live only in the top of the chest. And shallow breath creates a shallow voice. Thin, fast, high-pitched, trembling. The next time you are about to speak in a situation that makes you nervous, a presentation, a difficult conversation, a moment where you need to stand your ground, stop. Before you say a single word, take a breath from your belly. Deep, deliberate, slow. Let it expand your ribcage. Let it fill you up. And then speak from that fullness. You will be amazed at what happens to your voice when it has air behind it. The second thing you have to train is your pace. Nervousness makes us speed up. We rush because we want it to be over. We rush because some part of us believes we don't deserve the time it takes to say something properly. We rush because we are afraid that if we pause, someone will interrupt us or look away or decide we're not worth listening to. But here is the paradox: the pause is the most powerful tool you have. Silence, intentional silence, is not weakness. It is dominance. It is the space that makes what comes before it and what comes after it matter. Think about every great speaker you have ever heard, every great storyteller, every person who has ever stood in front of a room and held it completely, perfectly still. They all use silence. They know that the right pause before the right word is worth more than 100 rushing sentences. Practice speaking slower than feels natural to you. Practice the pause. Learn to sit in the silence without filling it with om and ua and apologies and qualifiers. Learn to let the quiet work for you. The third thing, and this is perhaps the most important, is eye contact, not the darting, anxious kind where your eyes skim across a room looking for a safe place to land. I mean real, intentional, one person at a time eye contact. The kind that says, I see you. I am talking to you. This moment is real. There is a reason we call eyes the windows to the soul. When you look someone in the eye, when you speak to them, something happens that no amount of perfect vocabulary can manufacture. A connection happens. A trust happens. They believe you not just because of what you are saying, but because of the fact that you are willing to be seen saying it. Most people avoid eye contact when they speak publicly because they are afraid of what they'll see looking back at them. Judgment, boredom, disbelief. But what I have found, what you will find, is that when you look people in the eye with genuine intention, what you mostly see looking back at you is humanity. People wanting to be moved, people wanting to believe in something, people who showed up today hoping someone would say something real. Give them that. Look at them, speak to them. Not at them, not past them, to them. Now let me talk about something that nobody talks about in conversations about public speaking. Something we all feel and almost nobody admits. The content of what you say matters far less than the conviction with which you say it. I have sat in rooms with Nobel Prize winners who could not hold an audience's attention for 3 minutes. And I have sat in rooms with teenagers, kids who hadn't done anything extraordinary yet by the world's standards, who held a room of 500 people completely breathless. The difference was never the vocabulary. The difference was never the credentials. The difference was whether or not the person speaking believed, deep down, genuinely, without asterisk, that what they were saying deserved to be heard. That belief is what conviction is. And conviction is what makes a voice magnetic. You cannot fake conviction. Believe me, people have tried. There's an entire industry of public speaking coaches who teach people to perform conviction, to hit certain notes, to widen their eyes at the right moments, to use their hands in practice gestures. And it produces a very convincing facsimile of the real thing. But audiences know, they can feel it when something is being performed versus when something is being lived. And the difference in how they respond is the difference between polite applause and a standing ovation, between someone nodding along and someone being changed. So the question is not how do you perform conviction. The question is how do you find it? You find it by knowing what you stand for. Before you ever open your mouth, you need to know, in your gut, not in your head, what you believe, what you care about, what matters to you enough to be wrong about in public, what you would say even if the room disagreed with you, what truth you are carrying that the world needs to hear, even if the world is not yet sure it wants to. When you speak from that place, when every word you say is connected to something you genuinely believe to be true and important and worth fighting for, your voice stops shaking. It doesn't go away, the nervousness, but it transforms. It becomes something else. It becomes energy, aliveness, that electric quality that makes people say afterward, I don't know what it was about her. I just wanted to keep listening. That quality has a name. It's called truth. Speak the truth. Your truth, the one that lives in your chest, and the room will listen. I want to talk about failure, because I believe that failure is one of the most underrated teachers of confident speech. Every time you speak and it goes badly, every time you say the wrong thing, trip over a word, lose your train of thought, make an argument you can't back up, say something in a meeting that lands with a thud instead of an impact, you have two choices. You can let it close you. Let it add another bar to the cage. Let it become evidence for the voice in your head that says, see, I knew I shouldn't have spoken. I knew I wasn't good enough. Next time I'll just stay quiet. Or you can let it teach you. You can say, that didn't work. Why didn't it work? What was I really trying to say? And how could I have said it better? What was I afraid of? And how did that fear change what came out of my mouth? Every failure is a lesson if you are willing to stay in the classroom. I have failed publicly so many times. I have said things in interviews that I wish I could take back. I have given speeches where the words wouldn't come, and I could feel the room shifting. I have made statements about things I didn't fully understand and been corrected publicly. I have been awkward and inarticulate, and yes, I have been embarrassed. And every single time, the experience has taught me something I could not have learned any other way. Because here is what public failure actually teaches you. Beneath all the embarrassment and the social autopsy you do afterward, it teaches you that you survived. You said something imperfect and the world did not end. The room did not collapse. You did not disappear. You woke up the next morning and your heart was still beating and the sun was still rising and life was still moving. Failure teaches you that the stakes are survivable. And when you know the stakes are survivable, the fear loses its teeth. Speak badly 100 times and you will speak well on the 101st. Not because practice makes perfect. Nothing makes perfect. But because practice makes brave. And bravery is all you need. Now I want to address something specific. I want to address those of you in this room or watching this who are carrying an extra weight when you open your mouth. Those of you who speak English as a second, third, fourth language. Those of you whose accent marks you as other. In the room you're standing in. Those of you who have been laughed at, corrected, or simply overlooked because of the way your words sound. I want to talk to you directly. Your accent is your history. It is the geography of your life. It carries the countries that made you, the languages that loved you, the sounds of the homes you have lived in. It is not an error. It is not something to be corrected. It is not a barrier between you and being understood. I have spoken in front of the United Nations. I have sat across from presidents. I have addressed rooms full of Hollywood executives and Broadway producers and New York journalists and Silicon Valley billionaires. And I have done every single one of those things with my accent, with my particular way of saying certain words, with the music of my background alive in my voice. And nobody who actually mattered ever asked me to speak differently. The people who mocked my accent were the people who feared what I was saying. They used the sound of my voice to avoid engaging with the content of it. Don't give them that power.